Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And good morning to you. It's November 28th. Hard to believe. But I also I'm just alerting you to the fact that the construction workers are back right outside the window here. And they're making noise. I don't know if you hear it, but that's what it is if you do. Lots of things to talk about since last we spoke, since it's been pretty much a week, I guess. This holiday weekend. I hope you guys had a good holiday. I had a wonderful holiday weekend with my family in Green Bay. And amazingly, the travel I was so worried about was seamless. Planes arriving on time, departing on time, nothing awry. What blew me away is how few people were wearing masks. Just blew me away. I was an outlier in that I had a mask on. I was in 4 airports. Pittsburgh, next to no masks. Detroit, didn't see many masks. Chicago, next to no masks. And Green Bay. And I was the oddball with my mask on. And I wonder, it seems that because we've gotten used to doing something we had never done before, which is to mask to avoid getting airborne viruses, it would seem that we might have made a change culturally, that it would make sense, especially in the winter when these viruses are all about us, that people would think it's just smart to wear a mask on an airplane or in tight spaces with lots of people around. But clearly that hasn't happened. And it's odd to me, and a little disappointing, I must say. So I need to tell you this. I am not feeling well. And I think, despite my wearing a mask, that I may in fact have contracted COVID. I have reason to believe this because after getting home, and I left early. The reason my travel was seamless is I didn't travel on the days most people travel. I went on a Tuesday and came back on a Friday night. And when I got back here to Pittsburgh Saturday morning, my niece, who had been with us in Green Bay, texted us unhappily that she had just tested positive for COVID, and she was alerting us all. And then my family just started falling like dominoes. My sister tested positive, Susan. Then my brother tested positive. And then my sister's daughter-in-law tested positive. And I don't know if I said my sister's daughter, positive. So there weren't a whole bunch of us there, but I'd say easily a third of us now, and most of the adults have tested positive. The only 2 outliers are among the adults are my mother and me and my sister's son. But as I said, I feel like hell, and I have for 2 days, and I keep testing, and it keeps coming back negative. And so I don't know what that means. I don't know if I my body is fighting this and is succeeding enough that it's not showing up. Who the hell knows? I don't know. But I am treating myself as if I have it. I'm quarantining and hoping that it doesn't get any worse than it is. But this begs the question, of course, of why it's still out there, obviously. And my family is made up of conscientious people who all wore masks while traveling, very careful people. And if we can end up having a super spreader Thanksgiving, I mean, this thing is still there. Obviously, I'm concerned about my mom. She had COVID last year when she was 99 and beat it, but it's asking a bit much of an old woman to beat it back a second time. And she now is in her home where we all were. And the only other person there is Susan, who's stuck there because she has COVID and she's she's upstairs. My mother's downstairs. And my mother's sort of on her own, even though Susan's in the house. So there's all this nonsense going on and stress of that. God. So I don't know. I mean, I have what feels like cold and headache and some stomach issues. It's bizarre, and an occasional cough. And negative 3 times now. And I don't believe it. So that's where I am. And of course, I pick up, I start reading the paper today, and I'm given a headline in the Washington Post about how 9 out of 10 people who are dying in the United States from COVID are 65 or older. 9 out of 10. And the Post article suggests that the reason we've all sort of decided the pandemic is over is because, well, hell, if all it's doing is killing people who are 65 and older, well, why don't the rest of us get on with our lives? They've had their lives. And so there's ageism probably involved, also economics, I'm sure. But the Post article says that more than 300 people are still dying every day from COVID in this country, which is still 3 times what a normal flu season, a bad flu season, toll would be. And even though that is down from the peak, when we were seeing 2,000 a day dying. We're not, it's just odd how I guess we just, well, I know we did because I went back to living. Just can't take it anymore. The constant isolation. And I do want to say how I wonder, since my niece, who was the first one to test positive, and then immediately did the right thing, which is such a hard thing to do, which is tell all the people she loves the most that she may have in fact brought COVID to the party. And then as the positive results start coming in, and we share that information with each other, she's just feeling more and more miserable, even as she feels miserable from being sick with COVID. And I called her last night to talk to her about it, about how, unlike a lot of people, I suspect she did the right thing. I'm sure a lot of people who get it don't bother warning people to be aware. And I'm also sure that a lot of people, having heard they have been in close contact, and God knows we were huddled pretty much in a single room all together most of the weekend, that if you've been exposed, that you're not supposed to go gallivanting around. You are supposed to, whether you test positive or not, quarantine, so that if you are in fact carrying that virus, you're not spreading it. And that's what I'm doing. But I suspect that's not what an awful lot of people do. And in fact, a lot of people can't do, because employers now don't let you if you want to get paid. And even if you're positive, a lot of employers insist you come back to work after 5 days of COVID, even if you're still testing positive, or they won't pay you. Our government has pretty much decided it's over, right? So people need to be able to test. Those tests cost money now. I think I'm not aware of how you get free ones anymore. If you are, let me know. But I can afford them. We're idiots. We're just idiots. The reality is that even conscientious people can end up with it and pass it on. And people who get angry. I mean, if somebody has been conscientious and ends up passing it on, for people to accuse them of you made me sick is bull and unnecessary as well. There are people who do spread it knowingly. They should be condemned. And then I was looking at China. My God. Now, their policy of not allowing, you get one case and you shut down a city of 200 million people is so ham-handed and so absurd. And it has resulted now in these unbelievable protests in a country where protesting is dealt with harshly. And it occurred to me that Xi, the undisputed autocrat in charge of that huge nation and its people, is so sure about his form of government, namely that he can control, everybody can be controlled, everything can be controlled, and he aims to prove it. The hubris of thinking you can control a virus. So this virus is showing him to be wrong and his approach to be stupid. God help his people. I have a call. Hello. Hello.
Good morning, my friend. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Hi, Lynn. Just to reinforce your point, 2 weeks ago yesterday, we returned from a wonderful 10-day river cruise in Europe, which had actually been postponed since June of 2020 for obvious reasons. But we decided to bite the bullet and make the trip. So after we flew home from Budapest to London to Charlotte, North Carolina, and Charlotte to Pittsburgh over the course of 18 hours, 3 different planes, everyone filled to capacity, not one person, including all of the crews, the flight crews, were masked, and lo and behold, Tuesday morning, I woke up with, exactly what you're describing, what feels like a cold, My wife, who's a nurse, tested me right away positive. And I have been positive for 2 weeks. As of yesterday, I was still positive. Now, here's the only kind of caveat I would offer for you. The one that I did yesterday, they tell you on the instructions, and it's very easy to miss because the instructions are, like reading calculus. They tell you that even if you have to look very closly at the line because it is very, very, it can be very, very faint. And frankly, I had to pull out a what do you call it? A magnifying
glass.
to look at mine to make sure. And lo and behold, it was faint, but it was still positive. So I'm looking at 2 weeks of positivity, and I'm, of course, quarantined the whole time. But so that's my story. Fortunately, the symptoms are mild. I did have this very strange, my entire upper lip broke out in this very severe cold sore. And, those things are painful as hell.
Yeah.
And that's slowly resolving. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you.
Well, that's helpful. I don't understand why I'm negative when I was in. I think we're all going to be positive. And I'm looking at my thing. I saw that it might be very faint. There is there is not a line, and I mean I'm stunned by it because I feel sick, really sick.
Yep.
I don't know.
Well, I won't take up any more of your time, but I will call back at some point and tell you a vignette about our trip that I'm sure you will be very interested in. But for now, that's it. You be well and take care.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Wow. All that travel, international travel, and no one's wearing a mask. Fascinating. It's just fascinating to me. I don't understand humans. I don't understand humans at all. It's sort of willful. I don't know. I was going to say stupidity, but it's more than that. I mean, people know this stuff's out there. It's sort of, and I have never been an extremely careful person. In fact, I would describe much of my behavior in my life as others would describe it, I think, as reckless. But I don't understand when something is a known threat like this and that people can help each other. I guess that's the part that most people don't understand. And I do have to say that from the time I got to Pittsburgh's airport, and to the time I landed in Green Bay, it was like 5 hours. And I was wearing a mask the whole time, and I have not been masking much. And my ears, God, it was so uncomfortable. It was pulling on my ears, hurt. Every once in a while, I'd pull on the thing and loosen it a little, because my ears were hurting. I was thinking, well, maybe it is uncomfortable. You don't want the damn thing on. But what I didn't want more than that was to bring illness into the house with all my loved ones. Damn. All right, you guys. I don't know. Excuse me, I'm hearing stuff. Oh, my son wondering how I'm feeling. Told him to stay away. Whatever. Okay. I'm sorry. I'll just try to drop it now. Hey, I saw on television tonight. You think I'm going to say the Steelers? On television tonight, one of, I think, a show that when I first saw that it even existed made me howl in a kind of existential pain. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, tonight, the first episode, I guess it goes on, The Great Christmas Light Fight. Is it just one thing, or does we fight for weeks until Christmas? I mean, the thing that freaks me out about it is that it seems like only in this ultra competitive culture that we live in could somebody think it was a good idea to essentially have a fight. A fight about Christmas decorations. I mean, yeah, and not only that, but I guess it's been successful, and so we've had it continues to come back. It's like, you know, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer for our time. It's going to be a Christmas classic. Move over, Grinch. We got the Great Christmas Light Fight. Oh God. I have callers, I am being told, which I'm thrilled to hear. So let's get to the first one. Hello.
Well, I have a
Hello.
stupid Thanksgiving story regarding COVID.
Okay. Go for it.
All right. I'll try not to make this too complicated, but it's really stupid. Thanksgiving, we decided to do Friday with some extended family. There were 10 of us. My wife's cousin went to her husband's Thanksgiving on Thursday, even though her father-in-law was getting over COVID but claimed he was symptom-free.
Mm-hmm.
She asked that he would take a test.
Yeah.
He got offended. All these exceedingly frightened people was what he used in his text. He got really nasty. And so this put her in a quandary, because here she is coming Friday to people she actually loves her, who loves her,
right,
cares about her.
Yeah.
So we all tested, and you sound terrible. I'm sorry.
No, I don't sound that bad. I beg your pardon.
You sound terrible.
Okay, so what ends up happening? I hope this has a happy ending.
Well, so far, all of us are. So we ended up we all tested, and we were all negative. The day, because one was a biologist, one was a doctor coming from Manhattan. They tested positive. Meanwhile, this Yahoo in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, has no idea how he can impact people from Southern Virginia, from Washington D.C., from Manhattan, from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And guess who he voted for in the presidential election? Okay.
Oh gosh, that's going to be tough. Yeah, let me think.
Yeah.
So I don't think you meant to say that the people from Manhattan tested positive, did you?
Everybody's negative. Everybody was good.
Yeah, everybody was negative, right? And so nobody thus far has tested positive. So it looks like the idiot in Carlisle managed not to spread it.
See, what I don't understand, Lynn, is that we've all lived through the herpes, and we lived through AIDS, and this is different because you don't have to have sex with somebody for it to have the 700 degrees of
separation. And,
and it's just. And that how simple this would have been if he would have just taken a damn test, but he wouldn't do it.
Well, the thing is, I mean, what he would have been able to do is reduce the anxiety that might be felt by other people by proving that in fact there was no risk coming from him. I mean, like, it's hardly a big deal to take one of these stupid tests. So I don't know what to say. Hey, I got to move on to my other calls. I'm glad so far your family's dodged the bullet.
And I hope you feel better too.
I thank you. I do too. All righty. Thanks. Good to hear from you. And bye. And hello. Hello.
Hey, Lynn, it's Mike in Highland Park.
Hey.
So the thing about the mask issue, I'm the only one ever wearing a mask. I wear it at the grocery store. It costs me nothing to wear that mask. Nothing. Particularly if you're not wearing it for a long time because your ears start hurt. So I wear it. And it also saves me from having to smile politely. Right? You know that smile you have, like, hi, how are you? Hi. Right? You can be in a checkout line and not even look them in the eye, but not do that smile that I have. So I was at Target picking up a prescription. Oh no, getting a vaccine, even better. And there's a guy coughing his lungs out.
Yeah.
I had a mask on. He did not.
Yeah.
If just the people who were sick, who knew they were sick, would wear an effing mask.
Yeah.
Nobody else would have to. But because people are irresponsible, I don't know what goes through their mind. You clearly are coughing. Do you not know that is now airborne? Like, I don't understand that.
Well, it's like a number of people on the plane, somebody would sneeze or one woman sneezed 3 times in a row and right near me. And I was, I felt animus toward her. I was like, and I thought and at one point, actually, I felt like I had to sneeze. Now I'm wearing a mask, but I so did not want to sneeze that I squeezed my nose through the mask and aborted the sneeze so that I wouldn't upset anybody by sneezing, not to mention wet my mask internally. So I don't know. What does it say about people? It doesn't say anything good about people.
Nobody cares about anybody but themselves. That's what it says.
I thought it was a peculiarly American thing, but the caller who said that he traveled, he and his wife, from Europe, all that way, and didn't see anyone on the plane wearing a mask. Wow.
Nobody cares about anybody but themselves. And what's so stupid is if you really cared about yourself, you'd wear a mask.
Well, that's true too.
Because there are colds. The cold and flu season is supposed to be bad.
That's right.
If that mask that I'm wearing, my N95, stops even one cold this winter, it's worth putting it over my head.
Yeah, I understand.
Like, would you rather go through what you're going through now, or coughing and sneezing and cough drops and Kleenexes and, unable to sleep at night and can't breathe just because you don't want to put a mask on? It makes no logical sense to me.
Well, I don't know what I agree, because it's not logical. There's this kind of, whistling past the graveyard aspect to it, of people, ain't going to hit me. And even if it does, I'm young, I'll be fine. People don't die of this anymore. And I have to admit, this sense of that it won't, the terror of getting it has been lessened by the fact that we're vaccinated, or that there's, Paxlovid and things like that. But the reality is in the article I read about, 9 out of 10 of the people dying from it now are over 65, which of course I am. My sister is. My brother is.
Everybody you know is.
Yeah, everybody I know practically is. Yeah, exactly. So, and the article clearly said that it's not that they're all not vaccinated. A lot of them are vaccinated and they're still dying. So this is something that is still hitting older people hard. And so what? They're old. Let them die.
My friend of mine, her daughter died at 5 from liver cancer. And I said to her, what have you learned? This was 15 years ago. And, I asked her, what did you learn about life from that? And she said, I learned that nobody cares about anybody but themselves.
Wow. Oh, God, wow. Oh.
And I guess it's survival of the species, right? If we're all out foraging for food to survive, we see a nut on the ground, we dive on it, and we eat it because we can't afford to be gracious or to give or to be kind. I don't know, but I didn't like what I saw in the species for the first pandemic I lived through, AIDS, and I don't like what I see about the species from this one either.
No. And, all right, you. Be well.
Keep wearing that mask. Even if it saves you from getting COVID, because now you're going to have immunity for 3 months. But you could still get the flu or you can still get the cold.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I'll look for you with a mask on in the store sometime.
Yes, sir.
Okay, bye.
Will do. Bye-bye. But, I mean, I ain't going anywhere because I even with a mask on, I don't want to. I mean, I shouldn't, right? I don't know. So, well, I'll tell you, the thing about Americans dying of this virus going away. Americans don't really care about massive death. I think we know that because of how we've responded to the mass shootings in this country, which is we haven't. And thoughts and prayers. Never thought it would happen here. Let's look at the mental ill issues of this guy. Let's learn the stories of all the people he killed. Let's berate someone or this one or that one and move on. We don't do a thing. Our government doesn't do a thing. There aren't people in the streets about it. I saw some numbers, and it shows that it's not even news anymore when there's a mass killing. It has to be a really mass killing, or it has to, have some special element that will put it maybe on the front page or above the fold. In November in this country, so far, this month, and it ain't over, there have been 50 mass shootings in the United States. You don't know that because they're not all, some are just, covered locally, but don't make national news. We average 2 mass shootings a day this year. And it's only going to get worse. I mean, because obviously it has this sort of like a virus, this sort of, it's communicable. So what is news? If news is what's unusual, not dog bites man, but man bites dog, then what should be news is if we ever manage a day in this country without a mass shooting. And we do nothing. So if, children being slaughtered, Sandy Hook, Uvalde, all if grocery stores, theaters, places of employment, it doesn't matter. The fact is we are we've achieved, come to think of it, immunity. There was a piece about the trauma. It's a new kind of trauma, didn't exist before, that's peculiar to people in journalism. There are people now who work as journalists who have covered multiple mass shooting events. And to cover them, to immerse oneself in them, is to, of course, become traumatized oneself. More than 600 mass shootings this year. American exceptionalism. So, would a country that doesn't in any way make a move to deal with this, that no other country has? No other country has that. None. This fetishization of guns. And the fact that now people who feel that that Second Amendment is the most important amendment, and how most of the states of the Union now don't even require a permit to carry a weapon of mass destruction or to carry and conceal. So the assumption has to be that pretty much everybody you see is carrying, I guess. Of course there's going to be carnage. If all you've got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If all you got is that gun, that's the thing that's going to fix any situation you end up in. It's really astonishing. And the fact that these people with their military style get-ups can show up at political rallies, can show up at state capitals, and show up in front of county election offices where, where votes are being counted. Doing so for one reason and one reason only, and that is intimidation. And that is considered their First Amendment right? So now we decide that that Second Amendment, I mean, these amendments are being perverted. Perverted. If we could exhume some of those bewigged founding fathers of ours and show them, hey, look, here's how the Second Amendment you wrote up has been interpreted. You see those guys? Those aren't soldiers. Those are everyday citizens. And they are expressing themselves using your First Amendment. What do you think of that? Gigi says, I don't know what to say. I'm so discouraged over the lack of common sense. It's not difficult to wear a mask to protect yourself and others. I think I've told you before, my partner's a pilot, and he rarely sees anyone wearing a mask, passengers or crew members. He constantly wears one, which means he wears them sometimes 16 hours in a day. Despite that, as soon as the mask mandate was lifted for air travel, he got COVID. Kind of shows that one-way masking can only do so much. Despite you feeling poorly, you sound pretty good. I agree. I sound okay, don't I? I didn't know that I'd have the energy to do it, but if I do, I'll keep doing it. I don't know. Okay. So, yeah, Barbara says she's feeling lousy too and testing negative. Who knows? There's a lot of bugs out there. A lot of bugs. Barbara also watched. I saw the end. I didn't see it all. And I'm sorry. Forgive me. I'm okay. That's all. 60 Minutes yesterday had a story about something really pretty astonishing. That when we think of survival of the fittest, we assume that means the strongest, the biggest, baddest ass. Yeah, them the guys are going to succeed. But that's not true. That's a very American and masculine, aggressive masculine kind of. The reality is that in some cases, like the kinship between humans and dogs, that what brought us together, besides common interests, and obviously, hey, you can help me here and I'll help you here, but what drew us was that the wolves who first approached us and shed their wolfiness were less aggressive, obviously. We're, in fact, friendlier. And the humans who took them in acknowledged that friendliness and gave it back friendliness. So the piece was about survival of the friendliness, a very successful evolutionary strategy for dogs and for many humans. And thank you, Barbara, for this. Like, we've been decrying humans, human nature, the selfishness of it. But there is this aspect of a lot of humans, and that is the capacity for friendliness. Anyway, if you didn't see it, it's worth a look. It was a definite positive. And Barbara, actually, I made a note to myself that friendliness is a powerful evolutionary force. So, thank you for reminding me of that. It's not really like I want to go here, but I'm going to. So over the course of, I'm going to talk a little bit about that horror, Trump, and the horrors that joined him at dinner, Kanye and Nick Fuentes at Mar-a-Lago. Boy, three vile humans. And I've been reading a lot of stuff about, growing anti-Semitism. Fuentes is about as out there as an anti-Semite in this country as there is. I mean, you'd be hard-pressed. He makes David Duke look like a Boy Scout. He just flat out. He's one step away for calling for, Jews to be rounded up and, gassed. Just one step away. And so because there's been this, Kanye, who has, because of his celebrity, a lot of people listen to what he says. So when he starts spouting these thousands of year old tropes about Jews, he's it gained steam. And I saw one person who wrote this, and it's so true. Just in the last few months, and it's accelerating. So even in the last week, anti-Semitism feels like it's trending, to use a word that we now, that it is increasing with extraordinary speed from something that before was just whispered, from a socially not allowable, to something that is just casually, it's there. Anyone, it's right, it's out there in the culture. And I have to say that for Jews, it's unsettling. We've never seen this. Even old Jews like me, we've never seen this here. And we do know our history, and so we know where this could lead. Somebody, though, I want to share this because I think it is such a wondrous take. They talked about Kanye and about how his blatherings are, going viral constantly. And it turns out this is something I hadn't seen. He was talking in some video about how his mental health treatment, which he says he truly regrets, and it stems somehow from his going MAGA, wearing that red hat. I will quote, I'm going to read this one little thing that the article says. So here's Kanye saying, "The thing about the red hat that drove me to a point of exhaustion, which was misdiagnosed by I'm not going to say what race, what people, doctor, or what hospital. We know I can't say that." And he pauses. It was a Jewish doctor. So all of a sudden he's like blaming, he was misdiagnosed with mental illness by a Jew. And someone looking at the video and how he paused at just the right time, they said, my God, and more than one Jew saw it and had the reaction of this. There was something about his delivery that was classically Jewish. I mean, obviously unintended, but in terms of comedic timing, it was a classic, like, Jewish joke, something that Joan Rivers couldn't have done any better. So, like, if you would say it like, "So the thing about the red hat that drove me to a point of exhaustion, I mean, I was misdiagnosed by I'm not going to say what race, what people, doctor, hospital, we know I can't say that. Jewish doctor." It's like a classic. So there he is, the anti-Semite, unconsciously delivering a Jewish joke. It was so really incredible. And maybe you have to be a Jew to get it. I don't know. But the person writing this say, so yeah, his arms crossed, the pause, his split-second reversal, can't say that, but it was a Jewish. It's funny. But it is also where America's Jews now live, right on that dissolving line between a world in which it is not permissible to say hateful things. I know I can't say that. The one in which people just go ahead and say it. It was a Jewish doctor. And the thing is there aren't, American Jews don't know what to do. how to fix this, how to make it better and not make it worse. American Jews have never been very good at responding to homegrown anti-Semitism. And I don't know that we're doing it now. And I've always said Jews are always in a catch-22, which Hitler proved, that if you do respond forcefully, it just becomes more fodder for the anti-Semites. See? Look at their power. They're shutting you down. They're canceling you. They're canceling you because they own everything. And if you don't say anything, well, it just keeps growing. So it's a particularly Jewish catch-22. And Michael Eric Dyson wrote a piece that was in the New York Times yesterday about blacks and Jews. The fact that, that Kyrie Irving and Kanye West are like, both spewing and promulgating this anti-Semitic stuff to black celebrities with large followings. And it's very painful because Jews and blacks have much in common. Both minorities, both with histories that are mind-blowingly tragic. Both with histories of unmitigated cruelty being inflicted upon them. And there are those blacks who won't acknowledge that about Jews because all they see when they see Jews are white people. And it's true that Jews' whiteness has helped them immeasurably in this country. The country already had black people to kick around, so Jews got a bit of a pass. But once that pass wears out, and it appears to be wearing out, blacks better understand that when the Jews are now taking a lot of incoming hate and violence, that it ain't good for anybody. The suffering of black people's history and in Jewish history have made these two groups obvious allies in combating bigotry. And Jews were very much part of the civil rights movement. But Dyson writes that black anti-Semitism is real and Jewish racism is real. But here we are, together again in the same boat. And he says that it would be well advised that members of both communities remember that we have historically passed the baton to each other in this long relay for justice. All these things are, they're intellectually fascinating. They're interesting. But I remember once standing at a bus stop on Smithfield. This might be about 12 years ago. and an older black woman. I can't remember why we started talking, but we started talking, and she ended up telling me that she had worked for one of the Kaufmans, like Kaufman department store. And what wonderful people they were. And somehow their Jewishness came up, and I don't know how all of this happened. Maybe I don't know. And she said something about, I've always felt, the Jewish people were so blah, blah, blah. And I thought, it comes down to these one-on-one interactions that people have with others. A black person who has a landlord who's a son of a bitch who happens to be a Jew is not going to have the same feeling about Jews, perhaps, as that old woman who really, really loved her Jewish employer. And we all do this. We take these personal experiences and then we inflate them to cover all others. Unless, of course, it's a white person. So if a white person, let's say, rapes you, you don't then become fearful of all white men. You don't. But if a black man rapes you, that might be different, right? That's the way it works. If you're white, you get this pass all the time. These reverberations of hate don't come back to take you down. But that is not true if you are a black person. And it's not true if you're a Jew. And it's not true if you're a member of any minority group. And Dyson also says something interesting I've often heard this from black people, that there is an appreciation. Well, he puts it this way: sitting right alongside varieties of black anti-Semitism is a variety of philo-Semitism, which is, this really respecting the Jews. And Dyson says it really can only be called Jew envy. He says, I've heard Jew envy in barber shops, pool halls, churches, black folk praising Jews for their unity and their ability as a people who account for less than 2.5% of the population and who successfully made their way. But as I said, that is quite a bit partially, because we've passed as white. But it is also cultural that we do take care of each other. And I've heard many, many black leaders talk about doing the same thing. Anyway, it's so sad to see when the white haters manage. It only helps the white haters when they get blacks and Jews at each other's throats. It doesn't help. I mean, this kind of hatred between blacks and Jews or trouble is never going to help either. So Dyson ends it thusly. When Kanye flicked verbal jabs at Jews, he was using his considerable visibility to pummel another people that had also endured considerable oppression. He was guilty of the very influence peddling and abuse of power he claimed he suffered at the hands of Jews. His blackness offered no shield from the undoing he faced for recklessly assaulting another group of people whose suffering had inspired the sorrowful songs of his own people more than a century earlier. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. He finishes with, yea, Kyrie Irving and the rest of us would do well to remember that African Americans and Jews are passengers on the same ship, facing the same ferocious headwinds of bigotry and hate. Yep. Why the scorn, the rage I feel toward racist Jews is it's huge, because any Jew who can turn around and tar an entire group with hate and vitriol and tropes of bullshit should be so ashamed that so many Jews have died from that same kind of insanity. All right. Well, I've exhausted myself. I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow. I'm hoping I will, but if I don't show up, it'll just be because I'm not feeling well enough. But if I'm feeling as good as I did today, and believe me, I don't feel well, I'll be here. Okay, because what the hell else am I going to do? I'm stuck. Okay. Anyway, it's always good to have you there, and thank you. Thank you. Have a good one.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.